Okay, so I know you guys have a lot of questions about how the inventory and how the widgets of the inventory system works. So I'm going to make this video to try to explain to the best of my ability how it all works. First, we're going to start off with an example with the chest inventory. So you can see you have the player and the chest inventory, and these are inventory grids. They're just inventory grids because the inventory grid widget has all the functionality of the drag menu, the inventory slots, the action menu, all that stuff. So it should all be implemented if you just put these inventory grids in. So if we go to the graph on pre-construct, we're going to look for our save game mode. If we have it, we're going to retrieve everything. We're going to get the player character, and these two functions, display inventory, are just going to display the inventory of whichever inventory component you're going to retrieve. So for this one, we get the player's inventory, so we just retrieve from the player the inventory component, and we set it to the variable it needs. The target is the inventory grids. Same thing with the chest. We're going to get the chest's inventory component, and we're going to set it to the chest inventory grid. The event construct is just setting it to the UI only, and we're going to show the cursor. On destruct, we have it so that way we can save both the chest inventory and the player inventory to the save reference, and we're going to save the game slot. Is that it? On key down just means if you press E again while the chest inventory widget is up, you're just going to remove the widget from parent. So you're going to remove it from the screen. If we go to the inventory grid, this is just setting up the inventory slots to size in the widget. So basically all these three methods are going to be handled the same way except for the exception of pre-construct. So for display inventory and update inventory, you're going to clear the children. To display the inventory, we're actually going to set the inventory component so that way you know which inventory you are getting. And then we're going to get a validated get. So as long as that inventory component is not null, I guess you could say, then we're going to get the inventory component's content, which is the array of slot structs, and in each element we're going to create a slot for it at that index, and then once we do that, I set the variable for the inventory slot, and then for the inventory slot it needs to set the item ID and quantity so that way it knows what to display when it is on the screen. We're also going to set the inventory component. And then we're going to add a child to the wrap box. So that box grid right here. So it's going to add a slot to it. And then this is for specifically the player inventory. So if it's the first 10 slots, it's going to be shown as a different color when you see the inventory. So that's what's going to happen. That's there. Then we do another check. So if the item is equipped, so that means if it's in your hand, we are going to set the color to red. So it's going to outline the square in red as you've seen in previous videos. And if not, we're just going to leave it the same color. Is that it for this one? Okay. So then we're going to go to the inventory slot. So this is just a little example of how they look. So this one has a little more to it. So on the pre-construct, we're going to get the data table, and we're going to get the item ID that was passed in or set for the inventory slot. And then we're going to set the icon based on the F item struct in the data table. So whatever icon is pre-saved for that item, we're going to use. We're also going to set the quantity so that way it shows up on the screen. And if the row is not found, we're not going to set a slot for it. This is just to double check that we don't see it. And then this one, if it is found, we're going to set it to visible. Is that it on this one? So then on preview mouse, this is just going to create an action widget. So if you hover over the slot in the inventory menu, so the player's inventory menu, and you either left click, if you right click, you're going to see the action menu, which will be the use, drop item, drop one, drop all. And if the left mouse button was clicked on, it's going to detect that there was a drag. And if there was a drag detected, you're going to make the drag menu widget, which is basically just the icon of it. And this create BPDD inventory slot is just a pre-saved drag and drop operation. So it's going to save the index of that item. And if we drop it, we're going to first cast to the inventory slot drag drop operation. And then we're going to transfer its slots. Now this is a function in the inventory component. So we'll go over that when we get to it. This is just checking if it's in the same inventory component, or if it's the same index. I think that's it for the inventory slot. Of course, you'll be able to access these and go back. The action menu, this is if you right click on the inventory slot. So first it's going to create the action menu so you can display it. And then this is a check for me because depending on if the item is a weapon, a consumable, or a seed, is going to depend on the different buttons that are going to appear. So we're going to get the item at that slot, and then we're checking if it is a weapon or a seed. So we're going to check that. If it's true, the button use is going to remain hidden because we don't want to in the inventory, we're not going to use it. We only want to use it if it's in the equipment bar and if it's highlighted. If not, we are going to use the button use because then that would be considered a consumable and we can use that in the inventory menu. So this will change once we have consumables. We currently, as far as I know, don't have any. So that will be using a use item function in the inventory component, which will just call the item's use item and use it to that effect. If this is the drop one button, and it's gonna call the remove function in the inventory component. Same thing with here. However, the remove all boolean is checked off because we are dropping all the items in that slot. Okay, I went over this already. Now time for the inventory component. There is a lot to this inventory component. I forgot his name, Ryan on YouTube. I based it off of his tutorial on YouTube, his playlist on making an inventory system. However, I did modify some things so that way it is customized to our game. So, for this, at the very beginning, we're going to, depending on the inventory that you are in, whether that be the player, the chest, or whatever is going to have an inventory component on it, is going to resize the array based on the inventory size you give it. So right now I think currently the player inventory is at like 20 and the chest inventory is at 30, so it will display that number of slots when you first see their menus or grids. Then we're going to load up the save game file, and if we are, we're going to update just automatically, just so that way we double save everything. This event tick has the interaction trace, so I'm going to open that function up. So this is just detecting, based on the interactive trace channel, the different items that it can interact with. And if we do see an actor that it can interact with based on the interact interface, we're going to do a look at call to it, which is just basically a customizable function that you can override, so that way, depending on what you're looking at, you can customize the different actions that the player can have. Let's go back to the event graph. So this drops is a drop item. So basically we're going to take the item ID and quantity that we see, and depending on how many are going to be dropped, we're going to first do the sound. We're going to spawn actor in the get drop location, which is just going to drop the items in front of the player. And then we're going to cast it to an item base, and then once it casts correctly, we're going to change the quantity of that item. So instead of dropping 99 apples in the scene, that's not very smart, and it's not useful. We're just going to drop one item. However, when you pick up that item again, it's going to give you 99 apples again. So we're just going to change the quantity of that item. Move item. That's basically just whenever you drag the items from slot to slot or from inventory to inventory, this is what handles it. The remove item, this is just calling another function, remove from inventory, and we're just going to transfer these booleans over. Update inventory, it calls on inventory update. And then we're going to loop through all of these, all these array elements in the array. And then we're just going to double check, because I saw that there was a bug that whenever you deleted stuff, it didn't actually delete it from the array. So if the item ID is blank, we're just going to double check that the slot is says none and that quantity is 0 and the item equipped is false. So that way we can add stuff to it into the slot whenever we get more items. And then we're going to save our inventory, and that will be another function. This local interact, it's going to handle the interact on the component and the item. So this is customizable to whatever has an interact interface. This use item is just going to basically use the function use item, and I'll go over that once I get there. And we're going to update, we're going to call this update function again, so that way we are continuously having the correct inventory.